Alright, so now our bed plate is completely installed. So the next thing that we're going to start is the pistons, connecting them to the crankshaft. If you noticed, these pistons, the top half of them are pretty clean, the bottom are kind of dirty. The reason is when I took the engine apart, I stuck the pistons in this Chem Dip, this product here, and it actually works pretty well. All the carbon dissolved out of it. I really didn't have to. I really just tried it. I was just curious to see how well it would work. But if you notice the rings in here, you need to clean those out. They tend to be dirty and filled with carbon pretty bad, and sometimes it's pretty hard to get them out. It's just tedious. So I let them soak for probably about 4 or 5 hours each, and then I swapped out the pistons and just kept swapping them out until they were all done. But all the carbon actually just dissolved right out of there. I just took an air hose and blew them out, and they were clean. They were good to go. If you don't want to buy that, which that's kind of expensive, it's about $30. You really don't have to, but you do need to clean out the rings inside here. If you have an old piston ring, basically you just break one of those. If it's a bad piston ring, just break it and then put it in the groove and basically just scrape out the carbon that you have that built up on there until you clean it all out and it's clear. So now we should be ready to start setting up our pistons, and the first things that we have to do is the rings. We got to set up the piston rings. Now if you noticed on these pistons, I'm using the pistons again, which they're fine, that's not a problem, but it's important to keep the pistons in the same order as the cylinder that they came out of. So just go ahead and label them or something so that they match the cylinders. See, I've got 1 and then 2, or yeah, 1's over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you keep them in order some way, it'll help you remember which pistons went with which cylinder. And the same thing with the caps on the rods, on the end of the rods. You want to keep those with the same. You want to keep the caps together. These, I believe, are cracked rods. I think they're called. I forget the exact name. But basically what happens is when they pour the metal in there, it's one solid piece, and then later on when it's all finished, they basically hit it with something and it cracks it, and they separate that way. I guess that just makes it stronger, but anyways, you can't mix and match the end caps on those piston rods. You have to keep those together. But now I'm going to go ahead and try to show you how to actually set up the rings now. They have 3 different rings. The bottom one is going to be for your oil. You've got your middle and you've got your top as well. Alright, so we'll go ahead and start talking about the piston rings. You'll have 3 of them. You'll have the bottom one, the third one from the top. It's going to be your oil retainer. Basically, that kind of has 2, well, I guess maybe 3 if you think about it. This is the oil retainer here, And then these other two super thin ones, they sit one on top and the other one goes on the bottom of this one. Now the other rings, the two smaller rings, they are super thin. And it's easy to mix all of the rings up. Just be careful when you open the box that you get. They should already be in order. Just be careful with it. If you notice here, see the top groove, the second groove, they tell you which piston land they actually go in. So just be careful when you open it. Just don't get in a rush and just start opening up stuff and then it all falls out. It'll be a mess to try to figure out which one goes where. So just be careful when you're opening it. But if something does happen, your rings will usually have a dot, like a little dent on it, and that dot is always going to go up.